Welcome to episode 60 of the Lovoni and Sarah podcast, where we chat weight loss, health, wellbeing, and share recipes and set challenges. We encourage each other to lose weight, become stronger, and squeeze even more juice out of life. And we share our stories to let you know you're not alone. I'm Lovoni.
And I'm Sarah, and on today's episode we have special guest Thea Duncan, who originally from the US now lives in Italy and has a company helping people fulfill their dream of living in Italy. We're talking to Thea about the difference in food cultures between Italy, the US and the UK, grocery stores, meals, dieting, and the value of good food and sacred food moments where time is spent preparing and eating good quality food. We'll be wanting to move to Italy by the end of this episode for sure.
Welcome, Thea, and thank you so much for joining us from Italy. Before we get into the questions, though, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how long you've lived in Italy, where did you originally grow up, what brought you to Italy, how long you've lived there, and what your business entails. Okay, go.
Hi, ladies. Thank you for asking me that super loaded question.
Yeah.
5 questions in one. I am originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I grew up in Miami. My parents made me learn Spanish as a child because Miami is such a international city. And so I always had a fairly international, worldwide view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I went to college and I had a double major in, I don't even remember what, but my minors were in foreign languages. And then I met a little Italian boy who said, "Come to Italy." And I was like, "No, I am going to Spain." And he's like, "Come to Italy." And I was like, "No, I'm going to Spain." And eventually we decided that I'd do a semester in Italy, a semester in Spain. I did both, but Italy captured my heart. And so I was like, I need to figure out a way to come back to Italy. That was in 2003. So that was over 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting a master's degree in Italy. After doing my undergrad, I worked in fashion for really, really top brands like Gucci and said, I love pretty things, but I do not want to work in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so a gazillion other things happen, and I help people move to Italy now, helping them avoid all the mistakes because it's a lot. And I am also super passionate about food because food is such a crucial part about Italy and its culture, and I think health and well-being in general. And that's what I do. Yay.
That's an amazing story.
It is. Gives me the warm and fuzzies. I love
I
that. I
know.
love adventure. I love adventurous people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal to move to another country, having done that twice. So yeah, well done.
It
And
is.
I moved to English speaking countries. So do you speak Italian now as well? As well as Spanish?
Fluently Italian. My Spanish used to be fluent. It's not so much anymore, but I can still understand it and read it. So
Mm-hmm. Just thinking about your lifestyle though, before we even get into the sort of food topic, before you moved to Italy, how did you imagine it to be, and does it match what you thought or hoped it would be once you got over there?
I had no thoughts or impressions about Italy
No.
before I got here, none whatsoever. It's really interesting because it just was not on my radar. I went to a bilingual international school, and so I did 3 hours of Spanish every single day for 9 years.
Wow.
I had the option of getting a high school diploma, not just from the United States, but also for Spain. So I'm not Italian heritage. Miami is probably 50% Hispanic. So I don't even think there's a little Italy in Miami. So it just was not on the radar. If I did not meet that man, I would not be in this country right now. So,
And just for nosiness, is that man the person
Yeah.
you're now married to?
No.
No. Another Italian man.
I still like him. He's
Another
a
Italian
man. I married someone else, though. Another Italian.
Another fabulous Italian.
Yes.
the reason why, we've talked about this there is that we wanted to talk to you today is because having lived in the US and, lived in Italy for so long, you understand and know the different food cultures and how different things are between the countries. So this is a big question. You could probably we could do like a whole podcast, not just one episode on this, but what are some stark differences in the food culture between here and Italy that you've experienced?
I mean, it's like a
US and
gazillion and
US.
one,
I'm in the
right?
US, just for those that, don't know. Sarah's in the UK. Sorry, just had to, Thea's in Italy. Sorry, go on.
No worries. No, there's like a gazillion and one. And as you ladies know, I just spent a lot of time in the United States. And it had been a long time since I'd spent so much time in the United States. And so it was like this whole new level of culture shock. Probably because my parents are from the Caribbean, from a small Caribbean island. And my mom also is a nurse by profession, but she always wanted to be a nutritionist. So we grew up in a fairly like healthy, like whole food eating, like there was always, a grain, a protein, a vegetable, and that's how I grew up. When I moved to Italy initially, to this little town about an hour outside of Rome, it was living on the Corso, as they would call it, like right off the main street, because almost all Italians, like towns especially, have a main street, a main pedestrian street. And I would walk up and down this pedestrian street every day. And especially in the afternoons, they'd have like la passeggiata, where you like say hi to the other people. And there was the market about 2 or 3 times a week. And so the market is right smack in the center of this town, which I think probably says a lot about food culture, where it's that point of aggregation between everyone. And it's so easy to get to because it's in the center, literally.
Yeah.
And the fruits and vegetables were so fresh. I think just about anyone who visits Italy for the first time, what they're surprised about is how food has a taste. Like being back in the United States right now, you'd slice into a tomato, and besides the fact that it has like this whitish, pinkish texture on the inside, and you're like, and it doesn't taste like much, My husband kept on saying, oh, now I understand why American recipes always have so much onion, because the onion here isn't that as flavorful, as like pungent almost as
Okay,
Italian
yeah.
onion. Like even recipes for garlic in Italy will usually have half the amount of garlic because the garlic tastes like garlic still here, So that was, I think, the thing that was the first thing that caught my eye, that I was surprised about when I first arrived, was just the taste and how it's a central part of life here, in every way, shape, and form, almost.
Food is a central part, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a part of culture. And then the rules, the regulations that follow that, I think stem out from that. So one of the things that surprised me the most is that you'll buy something like a lemon or an orange, and they have a very detailed description of any pesticides or any substances that are on the surface. And in the United States, that does not happen.
That's
Like,
amazing. Yeah.
it may say it's organic, it may not. But even then, just the fact that they have to tell you. And I think a lot of what then happens is that knowledge is power. And because it's so easy to acquire this knowledge, it's so much easier to make like an educated decision about what you're going to do or not going to do. I mean, should I keep on talking?
Well, I was just going to say, from that, do you think that there's it's obviously changed your approach to how you see food, but what's your favorite approach that perhaps you've learned since going there? So is that one of the things that's changed, and one of your favorite approaches, the fact that you now know what you're cooking, or is there something else that's altered, do you think?
So there's just this whole different level of attention to where the food is from and how it's produced. And it's something I think that permeates Italian culture. And it's not just for the wealthy, you know? So like my husband is from a teeny tiny village of 300 people. His mother never worked outside the house. I like to say outside because inside is work, you know?
Sure is. Yeah.
It's a lot of work, right? And they grew up in a one family, like one income family. His mother basically cooked everything he ate, you know, and very like not poor, but not rich family. They would go and get their flour from a mill down the street. The man who calls them once a week to let them know when the fish they just caught and what they have fresh in, and they can say, I want this and I want that, and then they'll go pick it up. They go get their honey from another farmer. And it is normal to have that approach to food, right? If you're not in such a rural setting, people still read ingredients and their labels. And when you read an ingredient label in Italy, being an American, it's almost like, wow, I literally have tomato sauce and it says tomatoes, salt, basil.
Right.
And that is it.
Yeah.
Because that is all that is in it. Like I bought pasta from a small farmer when we were down in Puglia on vacation, and the ingredients say wheat. And then it says in parentheses, from our own farms, water. I mean, in the United States, even wheat has like this long parentheses, and then it's like Nico something, folic
Enriched
acid,
with blah, blah.
and you're like, and then you wonder, because almost anyone who's visited Italy, they will tell you that they can eat gluten here, unless they're, of course, they're celiac, while they can't do it in the United States, you know? And I mean, it just, it goes on. We eat so seasonally. There were years, because my husband can be a little bit of like, I
With
would
food,
not
you mean?
eat. Yes, he's
Yeah.
very.
I think, isn't that just across the Italians? Aren't they just like that with food?
They're
It's like
very
proud.
Oh, can I say that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can say whatever you like.
Yeah.
So we would not eat tomato from like October until March. Like there
Right.
was no tomatoes in our like diet unless it came from like a canned tomato sauce, because he could not conceive the idea that you would have a tomato in the winter. So we ate a lot of broccoli and cabbage and all the things that are like carciofi, artichokes that comes with the seasons. And so like now that we've just started spring, like we just bought our first package of asparagus. I have not eaten asparagus, you know, like, well, I ate some in the States. It did not taste good.
No.
And I was like, I think it's because it was too early in the season.
Well, and it
And
wouldn't have been grown it wouldn't have grown here
right,
because it's too cold, and it's
exactly.
probably was old as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And so just the seasonality, I mean, like he will tell you the seasons of fish. I didn't know fish had seasons, because he'll be like, no, cozze, which are mussels, they're going to be the most like pieno, which what's it called? Like full in a certain season.
Yeah.
And then, oh, can we talk about that? Like in the restaurants in the States, like the only seafood that we had, like in terms of fish, was salmon. I was like, people, we know that there are other types of
salmon,
fish.
mahi is another one. They seem to always be the ones in
What's that?
the
I don't even know what
restaurants.
that is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a white fish.
A white fish.
Yeah. But it's everywhere, you know,
It's
mahi
everywhere. And I guess
tacos, you know, it's
tilapia.
just, yeah. Yeah.
But then
But
here it's orata, you know, it's sardine, it's
fresh
cefali,
sardines are so
it's
good.
swordfish, it's, you know, it's such an array of different types of seafood. And even that changes in availability according to the season. And it's like,
And I bet you can buy things with their heads. I bet you can buy things like seafood with their heads still on.
Yeah.
That was something I couldn't believe when I moved to North America, because I lived in Canada first, was that nothing had a head. Like shrimp, prawns didn't have heads. Salmon, like you buy a whole salmon, it's got its head cut off, or whole fish. It's like, well, if they can't see the eyeballs of something, then it's not so bad. You know what? And I just thought that was bizarre, especially if
And
you wanted to
maybe,
make, a stock or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, they have to cut the heads off everything. Then they don't have a personality or something. I don't know.
Doesn't feel so
I
bad for
know.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. Do they have like, I mean, because you know how massive the supermarkets are here in the US. Do they
Mhm.
have like giant supermarkets in Italy?
I mean, they have them, especially where I am right now in Milan. They have
Right.
a big supermarket chain. And interestingly enough, we don't buy our fruits and vegetables there because
Mm,
we're so used to like getting really good quality, fruits and vegetables that we go to either farmers markets, or we have like this farmers market delivery service that we use. But even that said, the standard supermarket food here is just better than what you would get at the average supermarket in the US for
Mhm.
a quarter of the price. So,
do they have like whole aisles of nothing but cereal?
no,
Bet they don't. They don't in Australia either. And that, like the
no.
soup section, I took a picture one time in Australia of it. That like the Campbell's, the canned soup and stuff
Hmm.
is tiny, because
Yeah,
mostly it's made from scratch. People just make their own.
yeah. And like
Mm.
people don't have cereals here for breakfast. They have a really, really, really long pasta aisle.
That would be fun,
But cereal, no. I
right?
mean, we were very surprised at how sweet everything was in the States when we got back as well,
Mhm.
Like
Mm.
we were staying in a hotel, and let's say a block away there was a cookie store, not to say the name, and they were selling these cookies, and my husband is like, "Oh, let's get a cookie." And I was like, I don't know. So I was at home and, like Googling this company, and they said portion size, it was like 220 calories per portion. But when I looked down, it was 4 portions per
Per
cookie.
cookie.
So
Mhm.
a cookie was like 800 and something calories for the least caloric. And then half of the time, sugar was either the first ingredient, or I was just like mind boggled.
And then the
They're
trouble
so
is
sneaky.
it is, but you get
Right.
immune to it, don't you? Because then you almost get blinded to that, and then it just becomes the norm. And then all of a sudden, one cookie becomes two cookies, and then, like you say, if you don't actually give it the attention, it can just accidentally start to come into your life. And I think that's the thing where it gets so normalized for the US or even the UK. I mean, we don't, maybe not quite that sort of size. I mean, everything's a bit smaller in the UK compared to the
Mm-hmm.
US in my
Yes.
experience. But still we have them, so perhaps we'd have the cookie, but it'd be half that size. But still, it's it just
Everything.
sinks in, doesn't it?
Portion
Right.
sizes, that must be something that you really notice, is the portion
Right.
sizes here are massive. They're so big. And that, for a lot of people, think that's a sign of a good restaurant. I just want to put it out there that I'm not capping on the US, even though it might sound like I am. I'm a citizen of this country, but the
Mm.
food industry is a bit over the top here.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
lots wrong with it.
I
And
think
that's why we're talking to Thea today about it. But definitely portion sizes. Portions
portion
are
sizes.
big.
Right. And I think because our brains automatically think this is a portion, so I should be able to eat all of this, or this
Hmm.
is for me, right?
Finish
And
it
if
up.
that becomes your norm, so then of course I'm going to eat one cookie, not fully conscious of the fact that one cookie is like 800, 900 calories,
Hmm.
right? Um, or a cheesecake is 1,500 at another place we went to. And I think because our bodies gradually set to that. So I
Hmm.
think what I noticed is that everything was a little saltier, everything was a little sweeter, because if that's what we get all the time, our bodies think that's normal. So I was talking to a friend, another American friend, and she was like, the United States needs this like detox almost to like reset our bodies to a level that's, let's say, a little bit more harmonious, a little bit
A bit more
more.
fine-tuned almost, isn't it? So you can then notice those
Yeah,
differences. Yeah.
yeah.
So what would be one piece of advice if, as most of us are not lucky enough to live in Italy, would you give to people so that they could alter their lifestyles where we are now, having experienced what you have in Italy? What would your advice be?
I think my two biggest, like suggestions would be one, read your labels. I think even though the United States doesn't give us as much information about our foods, what we do see, I think, is in itself is such like a starting point, sometimes a scary starting point, but we can make educated decisions about what is good or best for our bodies just by reading those, you know? And I think if we make decisions with our money, then the industry will follow suit. Italians are so conscious about what they eat and they will not spend money on things that do not fit that, right? And so I think as a result, Italian food companies are obligated to abide by this like almost strict criteria. It's almost like how Italians are so passionate about made in Italy that they have almost rejected like made in any other country.
Yeah.
And so the industry has to accommodate that. So I think Americans and people in the UK and the rest of the world know that there is power in your purchasing decisions. So that's definitely like my first thing. My second suggestion is just eat with the seasons as well. I think the more we eat with the seasons, the better it is in terms of like our impact on the environment, because it's not grown in a,
Shipped and flown. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. And it will taste better because it's likely to be fresher. And I think things that are grown in the way that they're supposed to be, one of the beautiful things about Italy is like they do all of that, but it is ultimately because it tastes better, you
Yeah.
know? And so when you get something that is in season, it will taste better and it will also be better for your wallet, which I think is a great and beautiful thing,
Double
you
win.
know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a double win.
Do you find most people cook at home there?
Most people definitely still cook at
Yeah.
home.
And it's not a chore, is it?
It's a joy because food is such a central part of life, right? Like
Community.
my mother-in-law, like my son was just down there and Diego went and bought pasta, like flour, and she made pasta from scratch, you know? People go over to each other's homes to eat, and this happens like every week. It's not just on special occasions, and they make the food that they're serving you, right? Um, Lunch breaks are an hour here. Like in the States, I think it's half an hour. And
Or
when I
at your
read,
desk. A lot of people
right,
just eat at their desk or in the car.
right,
That's another thing too. It's a big thing here.
unheard
Drive
of.
through. Yeah.
Italians don't do that. My husband doesn't even like eat a gelato and walk. He's a little extreme. He has to sit to eat his
I prefer to
gelato.
sit and eat my gelato. I'm with your husband. We're getting sort of down on time, but just this is something I'm interested in because I know America is so diet obsessed, and I'm sure it's probably like that too in the UK, Sarah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
They're over the top here. But I know that you're in Milan, so that's maybe a little bit different. But have you found,
Right.
I can't imagine Italians are like that. Are the Italians like that?
I
They're just
think
gorgeous.
there is a misinformation about what it is to lead a healthy lifestyle in the United States. And I sometimes wonder if it's on purpose. I have
Oh,
heard
yeah.
so many comments about, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and because it's healthy. And I'm like, no, that is not how you eat healthy. And that is not how you lose weight. And I believe it's this marketing machine behind food. And of course, the money that then comes with it, that America has pushing towards, and I say America because that's where I'm from, it's been pushing towards its population. And so people don't know what to do to feed themselves. And it's saddening. I'm going to go like left field here. Someone just posted this and I went and I looked it up. In 2011, the United States government reaffirmed, or they confirmed legislation where 2 tablespoons worth of like tomato sauce would meet the criteria as a vegetable for our children, you know, at schools. So pizza was legally meeting the vegetable criteria to
No
our
way.
children. And so what then happens is that we have a population from an age where they are now learning to eat, and we are feeding them that. Instead in here, we at my son's, he's not even like pre-K, he has a menu and it's a primo, a secondo, a contorno, and then a fruit. So every meal is pasta, a second course, which is a protein, a vegetable, and fruit and bread. The difference that it makes that a child at the age of 3, 4, 5 is learning to eat that way instead of what the United States and the UK and so many other countries of the world are doing. We're
They're setting them up to be sick. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a shame.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I could sit here and talk to you all day about
we should
this.
definitely be doing this again, because
Yeah.
we've got so much more that we could
Please
talk
come
about.
back on and maybe we'll delve more into the school lunches thing and the kids and just the different ways of, you know, bringing them up, knowing, you know, the food, the different foods. But thank you so much, Thea.
Thank you,
Keep in touch,
ladies.
and you know,
Definitely.
you might get to see us soon. But keep
I
in
hope
touch. Thank
so.
you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye for now.
Bye.
Grazie mille. Ciao.
Well, so are you moving to Italy now, Sarah?
Well,
You
to
decided.
say that I wanted to move there before is an understatement. So now I'm Googling
Even more
flights.
so.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, doesn't
One
it just
way.
sound
Just a
one
one
way?
way.
One way.
Sounds
Just a
so
little
nice.
small bijou place would be fine. Oh,
I
it does
love
sound
the
great.
idea of just, you know, the markets being in the center of town and all of that. And I've got some things to add as, you know, doing the research surrounding this. And like I said before, it's not a beat up of the US food, but it needs to be, I guess.
Well,
Maybe
I think it's not just US. I think it's places that really overstock ultra processed food. So that could be any location.
The
You're talking
US
about
is
the US
tippy
because
top of the list.
but
It
because
is
you live
tippy
there,
top
then
of
you
the list.
experience that. So
And
you're
I live here, so I
able
experience
to
it
talk
every
about
day.
it. Yeah.
But some countries, I've made notes. So for instance, the bread in the supermarkets here, most of it, and this is not the bread that's made by independent bakeries, like artisan bakeries. There is something in it called potassium bromate that helps the bread to rise. Well, that's linked to respiratory issue and cancer, and it's been banned in most European countries since 1990, but it's still legal here in the US.
Oh no, is it?
Titanium dioxide, which is used to make food shiny and more colorful, think candy, coffee creamers, things like that, are also banned. And one thing that I do have here is, why do people put so much trust in the food they consume, right? Without looking into it. They worry about what they're putting in their car, but not so much the body, as far as, you know, just the trust issue. So dyes, yellow number 5 and 6, and red number 4 have been linked to ADHD in children. So things like Skittles, Pop-Tarts, Gatorades, Little Debbie's cakes must contain warning labels if they are sold in European countries. Some countries like Sweden, for example, have banned anything with those dyes in. So the use by date on milk. Now, this is something that just blows me away here. When you buy milk here, the use by date is so far out that I have to look at it again.
Really?
And it's because it's ultra pasteurized. Yeah.
Right.
So then all the things that the ultra pasteurizing destroys, like folate, B12, B6, iron, vitamin C, then they're added back in.
Oh, so they've been falsely added.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might see something that that will say, you know, it's enriched with,
Yeah,
but actually it's in there because, well,
they've
the
added
heat,
it because they
the
killed it to start with.
pasteurization destroyed it. Yes. And then there's, of course, the whole hormone thing. Canada, Australia, New Zealand don't allow the use of hormones in dairy cattle, but sadly they approve the use of growth hormones. I sent you that graph of things of the countries.
Yeah,
Did you have a look at that?
only
The
briefly
UK
because
is good
yeah.
at, you know, what is and isn't allowed in cattle. In 1989, the EU, banned the import of meat containing the artificial growth hormone. So they banned the import of meat. Yeah, approved, but that's approved for use in the US as well. So just some food for thought there.
And why
Yeah.
is that? Is that basically a monetary thing? Because it means that they can get more, you know, get more out there, make it
They'll
last
be
longer.
bigger. They'll be bigger. For the growth hormone, that's so the animal's bigger, so then they get more for it when it goes to slaughter. And then, of course, the pasteurization, the ultra pasteurization, they say it's to protect people, but it's to make things last longer so they don't spoil. And so then the companies don't lose the money for it. But, you know, some may want to disagree with that, but some may not. So in doing this too, I looked up countries with the most strict, like overall most strict laws governing
legislation.
additive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweden, Finland, Ireland, the Netherlands have the most strict
Okay.
regulations. Yeah. So anyway, just food
And
for
I think
thought
for
there, like I
what
said.
Thea was saying is then it's also educating yourselves and for it to become the norm. So for where she is in Italy, it's normal, it's every day to go to the market to get your food. Obviously they use supermarkets too, but to get the fresh fruit and vegetables, that's kind of just what culture is. And I think that's what you've got to try and it's hard because if you're not living in that culture, so where, you know, you are and where I am, I mean, it's a bit mixed here. It's quite nice. We have farmers markets and things, which is nice to go to, but not everywhere does. You've got to almost push back against the norm, push back against what is considered culture and make your own way, because there is ways of doing it, like we've talked about before. And even if you're getting your fruit and vegetables from the supermarket, perhaps think through what you're getting. I mean, if you can get them and they're not in a plastic bag, that's always a better thing too, isn't it? So you can actually look at what you're getting.
It's hard trying to find.
But why they, you know, insist on putting it all in a plastic? I guess that's convenience because they can barcode them, they can swipe it through at the checkout. But it's just trying to pick your way through what is ever possible in what's on offer to you, because you know, we don't live in Italy, we don't live in that culture or that society where you can just walk to the end of the street and go and get something.
If people, I know not everybody can afford organic, and often, you know, if people shop in the supermarkets, the organic is, you know, it's not very fresh looking either.
No.
But if people are going to buy fruit, for example, especially soft fruit like berries, if you can buy organic, you're much better off doing that. Same with apples, peaches. And, you know, and also, I mean, there are farmers markets all over the US. Maybe, you know, not if you're living in downtown New York, but, you know, we have farmers markets all around here where I live. So, you know, if you can go to those, I mean, it's fun too to go to them. If you can do that, do that. You know, it's supporting farmers instead of the big stores. And maybe it's not always convenient, but I think, you know, the popularity of those isn't going away anytime. And I think one way around the eating better is to make the food yourself as well.
Well, do you know what I find?
You know,
So, you know, my parents are over living in Spain quite a lot of the time. So when we go and visit, we then go to the food market with my dad, because that's where he goes once a week or twice a week, different markets, but to go in to get the nuts, the fruit, the vegetables. And I find that once we've gone and got it, I feel way more encouraged to eat it than I would do if I've just bought it from the supermarket and you kind of just unpack it and shove it away. I don't know. There's something really appealing about having visited that location, chosen what you
Right.
want, put it in a paper bag, bring it home. It feels like a bit of an event, doesn't it, to then choose your food. And then I'm even, my mouth's even watery about it, think about it now. They know I particularly love the nectarines when I go in the summer. And I can't wait to have one. Do you know what I mean? They're there and I've chosen them and I really look forward to it. And I think that whole experience of choosing your food, making a plan about what we're going to have to eat, all adds to the way that you approach your diet, you know, what you are eating, what you're preparing, like you said, making your own food. I think it encourages you when you've actually gone to choose it as fresh as you possibly can. And maybe that is in a supermarket if you can't go to a farmer's market, but even then you can choose as well as you can, can't you, within that selection, and try not to get it in a plastic container if you can help it. Over
Right.
here there are some things still free, but not much, you know. It mostly it comes either, I mean, even broccoli is shrink wrapped. You're just like, why, you know, why do that? And
Right.
I don't like it because I'm like, that's plastic that's touching my food again. It's just another touch point, quite literally, of plastic on my food. And if you're trying to take that away from how you live, it's almost impossible. It is almost impossible. But yet,
Mm.
you
I
know,
think COVID, don't you think COVID had a lot to do too with more and more stuff
possibly,
going into plastic? I don't know, like you said, it's just easy. They can
I
stick a
think it's
barcode on it.
convenience. Yeah, I think it's just
Yeah.
convenience. And
Yeah.
they can portion things, they don't have to weigh things. There's no question about how much you're
Right.
getting. It's just all pre-portioned out, isn't
Especially
it?
lots of places, I'm sure it's the same there. Lots of places here now. It's all self-checkout. So that way it's just
Yeah.
easier for people
Mm-hmm.
to with the self-checkouts to, to do that. Another way too, and is growing food. I've spoken of this before,
Mm-hmm.
and getting your kids to do it as well. I think a child who has planted the seed and watch a plant grow and then, can pick it
Mm-hmm.
and, help mom or
Well, it's
dad
from
or
what Thea was
whoever
saying, since you know
cook
she was
it.
saying right from the word go, their
Right,
experience of their relationship with food is a really healthy experience. I don't mean the food's healthy, which
right,
it is, but the actual experience of having the food is a healthy relationship. And that's the same if you've grown it, if you've gone to the farmer's market to get it, they get a real connection with what food actually is. It's not just this square thing that's come out of a packet and actually
right.
goes down. And as we talked on our episode with Sarah Jane, often it doesn't even satisfy your hunger because there's not a lot in it. So you have it go down. That's the other thing. You know, I think Thea was saying about portion sizes and everything. The portion sizes are smaller because what you're actually having is really satisfying. And so you don't need this whacking great plate of food because you're fuller quicker because the quality of the food is so much better. So as you were saying, growing it, children experiencing growing it, that relationship with food starts right from the word go. And it does make a
Mhm.
difference. It does make a difference. I've
Oh,
seen in
for
my own
sure.
son, you know,
Rather than
I should say he's experienced a variety of food from a very young age because the nursery that he went to made really good food. So he was one when he started going to, so they made hummus, they had pita breads, you know, all of that sort of stuff that
nice.
became normal for him, and he didn't even bat an eyelid. So, I mean, as he then
Mm.
got for his fussy stage, as you know, I'm not trying to say he's perfect, but I think if you can introduce things really early on, it normalizes everything. And I think then that whole experience as a family unit, if that's where you're in, then that will really help too. It's sort of the same way as Italians do.
Here, I know a lot of kids are brought up on cereal, and I recently did a photo shoot, and there was cereal used in it quite extensively, and most of which I'd never heard of before. I remember mum, who was a bit of a health nut, but for some reason decided to buy Fruit Loops one day, and I remember tasting them, and I didn't like them. It's not what I used to eat. Mum used to give me an egg and, like, draw faces on it, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, with the toast to dip in. I didn't have a sweet breakfast.
No,
But, some of the cereal I just had a little taste was so sweet, and I think that's what they're giving
starting your day
children.
with, and you start your
Yeah,
day, and
and
if it's anything like me, then
oh,
sets that sweet, you know, tooth off, and then all day you'll be like, I want
right.
something else now.
I was surprised too when I first moved to Canada, and I was working for food editor for a publishing company there, and I would write recipes, and I didn't use that much sugar in my recipes, but I noticed the recipes there had a lot of sugar just in things like muffins. They had quite a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And I think, over time you get used to that, things being sweet. So if you're feeding a kid that sickly sweet
Mm-hmm.
cereal, um, that's just what they grow up
I
being
guess
used
that's what
to.
Thea was
You-
saying, wasn't she? You normalize it. So the
Yeah,
amount of salt, the amount of sugar, just your body thinks that that's normal, or the portion size, your body thinks that's normal. And then you want a little
right.
bit more because you're not satisfied with that. And so it just creates this
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy of just wanting more, getting bigger.
But you can change that. And I mean, it
Yeah.
takes some discipline. You can change it with kids and with yourself
Mm-hmm.
too. But I was reading, gosh, I think it was Brazil, where they have a, s- a black dot system.
Oh yeah,
So
you were telling me about this. Yeah.
yeah, foods that have like ultra processed foods will have a
Mm-hmm.
black dot on them. And that's just, they don't have to say anything much more. There's a black dot warning people that it's ultra processed. And they have also made companies, cereal companies, take all the animals and cartoony animals off the packets of cereal. Because that's clever marketing. They're marketing to kids.
Well,
Did
yeah.
did you ever did you ever see that? We were just talking to Jamie Oliver earlier about his rally to try and get the school lunches better in the
Mm-hmm.
UK. Did you ever see that one where he was in Italy in a classroom and was holding up different vegetables that all the kids knew?
Mm-hmm.
The Italian kids knew what they were. They knew eggplant, aubergine. They knew, zucchini. They knew all of them, an artichoke, all of that. And then he tried it in the UK, and most kids had never.
Mm.
Well, that's a tomato, but they never heard of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, there's a lot to be said. So
I think it's
just
just, and again, it can seem massive because let's face it, if you go to the supermarket and if we were doing the black dot system, I'm willing to give bet that most of the supermarket would have a black dot on it. So you're going to have to just try and find the way through, as you've said before, start cooking for yourself, but start small, because trying to change all of this in one go is
yeah,
probably
it's overwhelming.
too much. So even if you
But
just
it's the
decide,
ingredients.
yeah, like
Sorry, it's like reading
read
labels
the
to see the
back,
ingredients.
perhaps just
Yeah,
try
these
as a starting point, just go, you know what, one evening meal this week, I'm going to cook from scratch, no ultra processed food, set yourself a little target of
right.
that, and then just, start to introduce these things and the snacks for yourself or the kids. Instead of just buying pre-packet snacks, just make a few one week and see how that goes, and just try different things, because you can
Yeah.
do it. It just feels big. It feels big to try and change everything in one go.
I mean, make cookies from scratch, because the cookies that come in a pack that you just slice up and bung in the oven, convenient, yes. It doesn't really take much to make cookies,
Mm-hmm.
but like read the list of ingredients in those and just see what's in there. But the more that you can make food yourself, I know I keep harping on that, the better it's going to be. And I mean making food yourself by not opening a whole lot of packets and bunging
Do you know
stuff
what I
in,
think? I'm
but
just thinking about it then. I think it's really easy to disconnect from what you're eating, isn't it? So you can just pick up a packet, open it, eat it, and just not
right.
really connect with what you're doing.
Yeah.
If someone said, this is a bit extreme, but I've coated that in a thin layer of poison, but a little bit, probably
Right.
you'd probably be okay, but not sure. You'd be thinking,
With some number 4
yeah, or
red food
whatever. You'd
coloring.
have a little bit of a think about it, wouldn't you? If it was all over the outside, like
Mhm.
warning, you'd be thinking a bit like they do on a cigarette packet, although a little bit different.
Right.
It's when people are addicted. Sometimes the warning means nothing because you're like, that's nice, but I'm addicted. So I get
Yeah.
that. But if it
Yeah.
was blatant all over it, we probably would think a little differently before we pick it up and eat it. But we're so disconnected. Well, I can be so disconnected
Mhm.
between what I'm putting in as food or what I'm eating or what I'm doing, that if we just took those few minutes to think about it a little bit more, I think that probably would make a difference. And that's where this
Yeah.
whole beautiful culture of Italy, because that's what we're talking about today, but going to choose your food, making it from scratch, as you sort of talked to Thea about, sitting down and eating the food, taking your time, making it an event, making it a social situation. It's something which you're totally connected with. It's tactile, you feel it, you're making it. You know, that's the other thing. When you're making your pasta, when you're making your bread, you've used your hands to do it.
Like enjoy that you can do that. A lot
Yeah,
of people can't.
it's a completely different experience than ripping
Yeah.
open the top or picking up your slice. I went on a bread course last week and I made my own bread and I totally enjoyed it. And do you know what? The next day, went to get it out of its paper bag and it was really quite, you know, dry, because I was thinking, whoa, and that's 1 day old. It was fine. We, you know, toasted it, but it's still,
Yeah.
you
No
suddenly,
preservatives.
no, and suddenly your experience with the food is completely different, because then I sort of got a bit inventive, thinking, right, well, I can make some breadcrumbs out of it. I don't want to waste it. You know, you start to then think of different ways. But I was also a little bit more sparing with it, whereas perhaps I probably could have thought, oh, I don't do this, but I could have easily sort of at 4 slices because it hasn't really filled me up. A slice or 2 slices of that, I really knew I'd eaten it because it was a lot more dense and it had nothing, not a single preservative in it, no sugar in it, you know, nothing. And so I think that's how our relationship and our experience with food will change. And perhaps we can take some, you know, emulate these peoples that are living it differently, whether that is Italy, because we've just had that described to us, but we can emulate that in the best we can in the place that we're living in, and change that relationship and start thinking about what we're eating before it just gets shoved in your mouth and swallow it down.
There's no secret about the Mediterranean diet. We've done a podcast on it, you know, that it's supposedly better for you. But I think, you know, really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what, you know, you're doing. Like Thea said, when she was here, everybody's doing some diet or whatever. If you can, the more whole foods that you can eat, the better it is. You don't, and you know, if you've got to lose weight, instead of focusing on calories and fat and carbs and all the rest of it, if you can focus on eating whole foods, it will make a difference.
Don't
Just to
eat
your
junk
overall
food.
health. Just don't eat,
If you
junk
don't eat
food.
junk food, it will
Yeah.
make an instant difference
Yeah.
across a whole number of areas, the way you feel, the way that you look, what you want to then eat again, because it is
Yeah.
addictive, like we've spoken about. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Like, know your food, know where it comes from and what practices it came to get it to your plate. That's a big thing, and a lot of people don't. You know, they take more care of, like I said, their car than what they put in their mouth, and too much trust in these big food manufacturers, because
It's that disconnection, like I was saying. I think
yeah,
people just don't think.
well, yeah, and it's marketed like quick. You
Yeah.
need like something quick, stick it in the microwave, rip open a bag, there you've got rice, you know, and rice is like so easy to cook. But anyway, yeah, so don't have such a disconnect with it. That's totally true. And
Yeah.
you know, you were saying about too the whole sitting down and eating, and even if people are just, if they're on their own, because a lot of people are on their own eating, but even if they're doing that, it's still nice. I hear so many people say this. No, I don't cook for myself. I don't like cooking for myself. I think, why? If you know, cook for yourself, get good at cooking for yourself, because then you can get better at cooking for other people too.
Well, also, and like we said
Like,
before,
take care of yourself
cook if
first.
it feels like too much to do it every single meal. Make, you know, a
Right.
whole batch of them, and then you've still cooked for yourself. But I love that feeling of thinking, oh, opening the freezer, what shall I choose? Because I've made it all and I can just pick a
Right.
meal up. And because sometimes it does get late, or you've worked late and you sort of think, oh no, I've got, you know, another hour to then do something. You haven't got that feeling, but you've still got the benefit of it being fresh food and home cooked food, but you've got something that looks after yourself. You know, that's the feeling
Yeah.
I get. That's the feeling I get when I take one of those meals out and I think I've really looked after myself, which is actually quite a nice feeling, because it doesn't always happen, does
Well,
it?
right. If you're putting, you know, moisturizer on your face, if you're shaving, if you're washing your hair, that's all forms of taking care of yourself. So
Mhm.
why wouldn't cooking be added to that?
Mhm.
That's what I don't understand. But, whether you're cooking for yourself, one or two, whatever, it's good to have leftovers if you're cooking for yourself.
Yeah.
Then you have something the next day. Just it's how you approach it. But definitely have a look at go on Google, Safari, whatever browser you use, and just have a look at the food laws in the European
Mm.
countries compared to here and the UK.
Yeah.
Although the UK is much better than here. It's quite staggering. It really is. So, and it's not like they've just recently been banned. They've been banned since
A
the
long
late
while.
80s,
Mhm.
a long time. So, yeah, anyway. I know it's overwhelming, like you said, but it's
Pick one thing. Just pick one thing to start with and do
yeah,
that. Pick one thing,
right.
make a change on that one. And once you've got that one settled into your lifestyle, then pick another thing and then do that.
So this leads me into then next week's
Yes.
episode,
Yeah.
which is about nutrition wars. So we're asking the question, why is society, especially in the Western countries, so diet obsessed? We're looking at fad diets through the decades and discussing how overwhelming all the conflicting information found on websites and social media platforms has become, because everybody's a flippin' expert these days, aren't they?
They are.
Hey? Seems that way. So please join us for that. Start off, I just want to thank Thea again for coming on and sharing, her experience between living and growing up and living here in the US, and her experience in Italy with the food. And hopefully, some people can get over there and try the food or want to move there. Contact Thea.
Contact Thea.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, big
straight
thanks
on
to
it.
Thea.
Yeah, thank you. Be sure to visit lovoniandsarah.com for show notes from today's episode. Also, all of the links to ourselves and to Thea will all be on there for everyone to find, and our YouTube channel where you can listen to us and watch us at the same time. All of Thea's contact information for social media and her website will be there. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.